Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous Speedy Granny Ruth scarf. You're going to love this pattern so much. It works out to a no-hole, fabulous textured stitch. And the trick of it is we're skipping every third stitch, so it looks like there's no holes, but we are skipping 25% of those stitches, so it goes 25% faster. The finished size of my scarf is 69 inches long by 8 inches wide, but of course you could make yours any length you like just by making your starting chain any multiple of 4. To make your Speedy Granny Ruth scarf, you're going to need yarn. I'm just using regular size 4 worsted weight acrylic, whatever color or yarn you have on hand. I'm using 200 grams. That is about 330 meters. You're going to need 2 hooks for this pattern, one for your chain and one for your scarf. So for my chain, I'm using a 7 millimeter, and for my scarf, I'm using a 6.5. You will also need 9 stitch markers to help with your starting chain, a pair of scissors, and a needle for sewing in your ends. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. To start your Speedy Granny Ruth, grab your yarn and your 9 crochet hooks and your larger size hook, so one size larger than what your yarn recommends. So just start by making a slip knot, shrink that down and pop it onto your hook. And we can chain in multiples of 4. So if you want to make yours a different length, just chain any multiple of 4. For me, I'm going to be chaining in sets of 20. So go ahead and chain 20. 1, 2, 3, 19, and 20. Now we can just hold that chain along your hook and look for our back loops right here. We want to pop a stitch marker into that back loop. So just like that. And chain 20 more. 1, 2, 3, 19, and 20. Again, hold that chain along your hook and look for that back loop and pop a stitch marker into the back loop that you just made. And keep going making sets of 20 until all of your stitch markers are used up or you have chained 180. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. For this tutorial, I'm just going to be starting with a smaller sample, so your chain will be longer than mine. So after you have chained your 180 or you've used up all 9 stitch markers, pop that hook out and put it away. You don't want to grab it by mistake, so put it farther away from you than you would think. And grab your smaller hook, and now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3, and this counts as our first double crochet. Now into where our stitch marker is, or the 4th chain from our hook, we want to be working into the back loops to start our scarf. So there's our pretty little V's. We want to roll those to the side, and these little camel bumps are where we're going to be working in, where that stitch marker is, all the way along our scarf, or all the way along our chain. So wrap your yarn and into where that stitch marker is, just slide that back loop on your hook and make 1 double crochet. You can pop the stitch marker out. We don't need it if it's in the way. And 1 double crochet into the next back loop, which is this guy right there. And that'll give our scarf a nice finished edge. It's going to look like that pretty chain. So working into the back loops really does help. Chain 1, and we're going to skip 1. So we're skipping this back loop. We're going to work into the second back loop. So just slide the second back loop onto your hook. And we're going to do sets of 3 double crochets. So there's the first double crochet into the next back loop, our second double crochet, and into the third back loop, which is right there, our last double crochet. So we're just doing sets of 3 to start out. Chain 1, skip 1, and into the next 3, 1, 2, 3, we're going to do 1 double crochet into each. So skipping the next and into the second back loop, our first double crochet, into the next back loop, double crochet, and into the next back loop, double crochet. So you can pause the video and keep working along, doing a chain 1, skip 1, and 1 double crochet into the next 3, all the way along your chain, and I'll meet you when we get closer to the end, right over there. At the end of your row, you'll have 2 chains left. If you don't have 2 chains left, just follow along with what I'm doing, and I'll show you the quick fix on how to fix that when we're done. So we've already finished our set of 3, so we're just going to do a chain 1, skip 1, and 1 double crochet into that last chain, or the second chain if you have more than 2 chains left. Just slide it onto your hook and your last double crochet. And that finishes row 1. Now, if your starting chain was too long, this is how you can fix it. So if your chain didn't line up, you had an extra chain or an extra couple chains, don't worry about it. It still is going to work out great. Just keep going. We can undo those last 2 chains. To undo your chain, we just want to undo that slip knot. To undo your slip knot, we want to trace this yarn back underneath that knot and just gently pull at it to loosen it. Like that. And then just follow it back down, undoing each stitch. You want to be careful when you get to this last stitch. It looks like we have to undo our last stitch, but really we're just going to be pulling our yarn through. So that stitch is going to be our new slip knot. So just pull it through. Just like that. Just like that. So sew in your tail, and there you go. Your blanket is fixed. You don't have to go back and frog all the way back to the beginning of your starting chain. To start row 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. Now we were going to be working into our chain for this entire pattern, so an easy way to turn your work so that your chain is easier to work into, you slide your hand under your yarn and grab your work and bring it back. And turning that way is going to leave your chain in a very lovely way to work into for the next round. Now for the next stitch, we're going to be going back into the chain. So these first 2 rows are not speedy. If you're like, why is it not fast? Because we are taking our time in the beginning, but it's going to speed up after this. So we're going to be doing a drop double crochet into our chain. So we're still looking for our back loop of our chain, and we're going to be doing our double crochet. So wrap your yarn, slide that back loop under that space, slide that back loop of the chain onto your hook, put your hook into the space, and 1 double crochet. Just like regular, but lower than normal. And now into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. So that is our first set of 3. We're going to chain 1 and skip 1, so we're skipping that middle stitch, and we're doing our set of 3 around the space. So into the stitch before the space, double crochet, into the stitch below the space or into that chain, slide that back loop on, poke your hook through the space, and do your double crochet. And double crochet into the next stitch. So there's our set of 3. Chain 1, skip 1, so we're skipping that center stitch of the row below, And we're going to start our set of 3 around that space. So before, under, and after. Before the space, double crochet. Under the space, slide that back loop onto your hook. Poke your back loop through the space or into the space and do your double crochet. And 1 double crochet into that next stitch. So we're just making those sets of 3 all the way along. Chain 1, skip 1, so we're skipping the center stitch of the 3 below. Wrap your yarn and into the stitch before the space, double crochet. Into the stitch or into the chain, the back loop under the space, double crochet. So wrap your yarn, slide that loop onto your hook, poke your hook through that space or into that space, bring your yarn back and finish your double crochet. And 1 double crochet into the next stitch. We're going to do that all the way along your row. So chain 1, skip 1, and then do your set of 3 around the space. So double crochet before the space, double crochet under the space, and double crochet after the space. Just like that. So you can pause the video and keep working along, and I'll meet you when you get right over here to the end of your row. At the end of your row, you've just finished your last set of 3. We're going to chain 1, skip 1, and we're going to make 1 double crochet into the chain. So just slide your hook in. You want 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook and finish with a double crochet. So that finishes row 2. To start row 3 is our repeat round. So we're going to be doing row 3 until your scarf is the width you'd like it to be. So to start row 3 or the repeat round, chain 2, turn your work. So remember to slide your hand under, grab your yarn and turn it. So your chain will be facing you nicely for the next round. Wrap your yarn and we're going to go into this stitch right underneath that space. Let me show you right here. So pop that stitch onto your hook and make your double crochet. Don't worry if it looks all weird, it's going to straighten out. Don't even slow down for it, it's fine. Into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. And that finishes our first set of 3. So chain 1, skip 1. And we're going to make our next set of 3 around the next space. So before, under, and after. Before the space, double crochet. Under the space, double crochet. So we're going into this whole stitch right there. It's so easy now. This is the fast bit. So under, double crochet, and after, double crochet. So there's our set of 3. Chain 1, skip 1 around the next space, before, under, and after. So before the space, double crochet. Under the space, double crochet or a drop double crochet. And after the space, double crochet. There's another set of 3. Chain 1, skip 1, and we're going to go around the next space, before, under, and after. So before, double crochet, under, drop double crochet, and after, double crochet. You can pause the video and just keep working along, chaining 1 and skipping 1, doing your set of 3 around the space, before, under, and after, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row, right over here. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. At the end of your row, we have these, well, you have your stitch and your chain left, and because of how we're turning our work, you can see our V's of that chain are facing us. That's what we wanted. So chain 1, because we're skipping that center stitch, and then into our chain, the top of our chain 2, just slide your hook in. You want 2 strands on the top of your hook and finish that double crochet. Just like that. So you can pause the video, keep working along, just repeating row 3 until your scarf is the width you want it to be. And then I'll show you how to finish so that last row looks just like your first row. When your scarf is the width you want it to be, or you just have a little bit of yarn left, we are ready to do the last row. To start the last row, chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. Wrap your yarn and into that stitch underneath the space, make 1 half double crochet. And into each of the next 3 stitches, make 1 double crochet into each. So every stitch gets a stitch for this last row. So 3 double crochets, and then into the stitch below, we're going to be doing a half double crochet. Just like that. So that finishes off the edge of the scarf, just like our starting, or the first row of our scarf. So 3 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. And a drop half double crochet into the stitch below. So you can pause the video and keep working along. 1 double crochet into each stitch and a half double crochet into that stitch below, that little guy down there, all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get way over here to the end of the row. At the end of the row, just keep working into your stitches as usual, and also into that chain, making your last double crochet into the chain, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Now you can cut your yarn, just leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails, and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.